In the background, you are hearing the haunting theme song from the 1991 Russian TV adaptation of Lord of the Rings. Fellowship of the Ring, in particular. Buried God knows where for the last 30 years, it's now on YouTube and has caused a little bit of a buzz. Mostly because it is one of the weirdest things you will ever see in your life. I'll have links for it. It's in 2 parts. It's quite long. Wow, somebody put a lot of work into this, believe it or not. But most people don't actually want to watch this, even those who are interested. They'll just watch parts of it. I, however, am crazy enough to watch the entire thing, and I'm going to provide some commentary. The movie has no subtitles, so it's a little bit extra crazy to go ahead and watch this, but I could not resist. Here's the best bit of casting in the entire thing. Bilbo is the only actor, you know what I mean, who kind of looks the part. Just wait till you see some of the others. But anyway, just like in the books, Bilbo's throwing a party, of course. And you can see right off the bat how low rent this production is, but that gives it kind of a community theater feel. I don't mind that part. The special effects are anything but special, but they're doing what they can. We've got Bilbo, we've got Frodo. I said Bilbo is the best piece of casting in this thing. Frodo, the central character, is the absolute worst. He's incredibly annoying. Nevertheless, let's get back to the party. It's quite a party. It just begins to give you a glimpse of how bizarre of a visual spectacle this thing is. Not convinced? Watch this. But things get serious as Gandalf, or Russian Liam Neeson, shows up. Ooh, before we go any further, I should mention, here's our narrator. I think he's supposed to be Tolkien himself. Don't know, but he starts and ends things and juts in at different points. But forget him. So this thing is actually pretty faithful despite some very strange and disloyal choices. For instance, there you saw the actual envelope and the ring on a chain, no less. Speaking of bizarre choices, though, the actor who plays Frodo is real fidgety and odd, so here he's whittling away a piece of wood, but just obsessively, with a scrunched up look on his face as he's supposed to be paying attention to this life and death matter that Gandalf is explaining to him. War, the fate of the world, stuff like that. Speaking of war, this is what a war scene looks like in this movie. Most of the fighting scenes are handled like this. You have an actor, isn't that a terrifying orc, by the way, just facing the camera as opposed to actually staging any kind of combat, although we will see that later. Of course, you get the backstory of the ring, so here's the hobbit that Smeagol kills. This is him underwater, by the way. And here's the murder scene. And the culmination of that dark deed, Gollum. There's some more music from the soundtrack in the background, by the way. And yeah, that's Gollum. That's apparently the best they could do. Here we have Gandalf versus Gollum, in flashback mode, of course. Here's what all the fuss is about. The ring, probably the best prop in the entire movie. I don't care what anybody says, I like the look of it. Meanwhile, the look of our 4 main hobbits is the worst thing I've ever seen. It makes me want to pour bleach directly into my eyes. Sam is my favorite character. That's him on the left, and he looks almost disturbing in close-up, as you'll see later. Now, one thing you would think this production would have going for it is spectacular views, outdoors, landscapes. They're in Russia. Let's get some panoramic views, that kind of thing. Here's the Nazgul, obviously. They couldn't even bother to have black horses. Might not be as easy as you think to find a black horse. But yeah, no, all the outdoor scenes. 1, it's always in snow. And 2, it looks like the cheapest fan film you've ever seen. It was just made in like a suburban generic park. So this is after they hid from the Nazgul, hence the snow on the face. This exterior is so bad, it just goes straight to the interior. I actually didn't understand this scene either, because at first I thought they were at the Prancing Pony, but they're not. They're not at Farmer Cotton's, because it seems to be some kind of tavern or alehouse. I don't know. Regardless, what's important, here comes some more music, is that they get transportation. Yes, they all ride on a sled. That's how they get out of the Shire, and that's how they get to meet Tom Bombadil, because these producers were not afraid to include Tom Bombadil. Take that, Peter Jackson. There he is, and he doesn't look terrible, I don't think. His look is not odd. What's odd is that he seems to be about 20 feet tall. Obviously, that does not happen in the books, and it's just really strange that they went to the trouble to make that happen, but that's what they did. And it's not real quick, as you can tell, either. They hang out here for a while, so Goldenberry putting him to bed. Whatever. A little more traveling through the snowscape, and we get, of course, to the Barrowitz. No more sled, by the way. Everybody has a horse or pony. But here they are under the mound. Here's Frodo. I don't know why they chose to not just have him lie down on the set that we just saw instead of using this quote-unquote special effect, but there he is. Notice the Hobbit feet, by the way. They're just terrible. They really would have been better off to just go barefoot and, like, glue some hair onto the tops of the actors' feet. Here's one of the spirits under the mound. And that visual is legitimately creepy, but let's fast forward. So Tom shows up, of course, and rescues them. And they can be on their way once they say goodbye. Reminder, he's an absolute giant. Makes no sense. And back out to the snow. There's a lot of these snow scenes with the music in the background. That's a lot of padding here. We get shots of the Nazgul a lot, way more than we should, because nothing ever happens. They never, like, legitimately chase the hobbits, get close to them as they cross the ferry. There is no ferry, etc., etc. But there you get to see one up close. We also get to see Aragorn up close, yes. So that's Aragorn, and yeah, he has a tremendous scar on his face. I don't know why we get to see him before we get into Bree, but here we are in Bree. The Prancing Pony is a much more happening joint than in the book, so there's all kinds of people, including women. A lot more women in this movie than in the books, and Frodo actually gets himself into trouble in this film as opposed to in the books because he's dancing with her, and that's how we get to his bizarre disappearance. What's also bizarre is you don't actually see things happen a lot in this movie, you just see the reactions, so this is how we know he disappeared. Anyway, though, he ends up, of course, with Strider. Here's their room. I love the room. Strider, of course, shows up. Thought it was funny. Frodo kind of grabs him by the lapels. And they're off. No Bill Ferny, no pony, no nothing. So anyway, more scenes of the Nazgul in the snow. And we get to Weathertop. Notice the background here, behind Frodo on Weathertop. That's the Weathertop scene, and so's this. They're interacting with each other right now, even though their backgrounds look completely different. As you can see, they wield fire as a weapon, which makes absolutely no sense, given what we know about the Nazgul and fire, but that's what they do here. Still not as bad as that scene from the Fellowship of the Ring, where apparently if you touch a Nazgul with an open flame, they go up like a Christmas tree in June. God, that was stupid. Frodo and the Nazgul fight. Again, fighting usually means one character at a time on camera, completely different backgrounds, but yep, he gets stabbed. And more snow horse galloping. We even get a glimpse of Mordor. It's the best I could do. It's a cool little building, but, really, really small. Just don't know if they should have bothered. And anyway, Frodo wakes up in Rivendell. Sam holds his hand, just like in the book. I think this image encapsulates this entire movie better than anything. Why couldn't they have filmed him in front of something real? Anyway, we're in Rivendell, Council of Elrond. There he is. Here's Boromir. There's Legolas next to Bilbo. Legolas is a woman. Bilbo and Boromir are tempted by the ring. We can tell that because their faces turn red. Everyone's hanging out, trying to make the decision right, and we get the backstory on Saruman. Note the terrifying vision of orcs that he sees before him in a second. And just like in the books, Gandalf escapes in a special effects extravaganza this time. You have to love how schlocky this image is. And that is definitely part of the charm of this whole thing. It's easy to make fun of. Let's get some music going again. And you can see why it's easy to make fun of. But it's like people took, I don't know, $1,000, however many rubles that is, in Russia, and tried to make an adaptation of Fellowship of the Ring. Come on. You gotta love that. Notice that Gimli is in red, and he's kind of the table they're using there to hold the map, and that was apparently a bit of high comedy. So yeah, that's what Gimli looks like. My second favorite character from the books, and he has not done justice in this production. Then again, how is that different from the Peter Jackson movies? Rimshot. I do love me some John Rhys Davies, though. Thank God they cast him. So, we're in Moria. Boy, this thing was from 1991. It looks like it's from 1975. More Nazgul in the snow, because, funny enough, so they have all this snow on location, but they don't film anything related to trying to cross the Misty Mountains, the only scenes in the book that actually have snow. Anyway, in Moria, Frodo falls down a chasm. Horrible bit of physical acting here. The screenshot doesn't do it justice, but anyway, Aragorn has to rappel down for him, and then he climbs back up, but he doesn't have him with him. I don't know, it's very confusing. Notice here that Gimli is like half the height of a hobbit. And that's ridiculous, but anyway, this is the big action sequence of the entire movie, so we get battle scenes like this. And here, people actually fighting on screen together. That's Boromir versus some orcs. Sam with his very weird eyebrows. Legolas with a tinfoil sword. Once again, you know, the action climax of the movie. And finally, they make it to Durin's Bridge. Pay attention. Aragorn is going from right to left across the bridge. The mighty bridge, by the way. Now everyone's sad, presumably because Gandalf is dead, but we didn't see him die. And in fact, here he is, leading them across Durin's Bridge, out of Khazad-dûm, but they're going left to right. Don't worry about that. Opposite direction Aragorn was going, but whatever. There's a scary tunnel. I think that implies the Balrog is arriving. Everything seems out of sequence. I watched this part twice. It's the worst editing you'll ever see in anything. Aragorn's sword is the most important one in all of the books, and it is also made of tinfoil. And as you can imagine, the Fellowship does, of course, escape, minus Gandalf, and they get to Lorien, or Lothlorien, which is basically a Fleetwood Mac video, and it goes on for quite a while, or at least it feels like it. Gimli and Boromir do not partake in the festivities. They're not trusting any of this. And yeah, so lots of wonderment at the surroundings of Lothlorien, and basically the elves put them all to sleep, put the Fellowship to sleep. Why? I don't know why, but that's what they do. And as you can imagine, we end up at Galadriel's. There's her place. That's the view you get of it from the exterior, and then they get in for the very important meeting. And we get more weird sensory overload like that. There's Galadriel. Pippin has, like, monkey lips. And, you know, they did as good of a job as they could, I think, on the interior here. Fellowship is bored. You know, things progress, obviously, to a crucial scene. And then we get weird vision stuff like this. I'm not even sure who that is. And this. All these things are, of course, seen in Galadriel's mirror, and the mirror/fountain in this production is basically a small goldfish bowl filled with fruit punch. See that? Bottom left? Come on, guys. There's no way they couldn't have done better if they tried for that. Moving on, Boromir helps Frodo reach some fruit, and, of course, this leads to the temptation. He wants the ring. Yeah, this is all kind of smashing together with, you know, events from later in the actual book, but, you know, it doesn't matter. It's happening here. They're in Lorien, Frodo making those inimitable faces that he makes, and Sam, with his weird Joe Pesci in the movie JFK eyebrows, decide they've got to go. And so they do. You know, a lot of fast forwarding, skipping lots of things that happen in the book, lots of things that would have taken more sets and action scenes and things like that. So, too bad. And we get some final shots with the incongruous snow. That is it. That takes about 2 hours to fight through on YouTube. I did it so you don't have to. I don't know why anybody would fight through watching this 13-minute video about it either, but I decided to make it anyway. I do love this thing. I love that it exists and that we can watch it. What a wonderfully bizarre little piece of forgotten fantasy pop culture television. I know.